In third and fourth grade, we want our students to understand what fractions are. So very often we will have vocabulary cards along with our math program that describes what a fraction is. And in this case, a fraction is defined as a symbol that names a part of a whole, or a part of a set, or a location on a number line. A very popular third grade activity to introduce fractions as being a part of a whole is a paper folding activity where our third graders and maybe even our fourth graders would take strips of paper and make fractional parts. So for example, they would start with a whole, and this green would be called the whole. Then they would be given another fraction and say, we would like you to take that fraction and make it into 2 equal parts. So they would be given that chance to fold that piece of paper into halves, and we would have 2 equal parts equaling 2 halves, and those 2 halves will be the same as the whole. The boys and girls will continue. They'll take another piece of paper and they'll fold in half to make their 2 halves, and then they'll fold in half again, and when they open that piece, they will see that they have 4 equal parts, and those 4 equal parts are the same as a whole. And that language, that use of equal parts of a whole is very important, knowing that they're basing those equal parts of that whole on this green strip. The boys and girls will continue and they will make thirds, they'll make sixths, they will make eighths, and they will make twelfths. And then the activity that they may do after they make these paper strips is they will mix them up in a way for the boys and girls to have to remember how many equal parts are made up of this strip of paper. So for instance, when they pick this up, they will have to say, I know those are halves, because 2 of those make a whole. When they pick this one up, they may have to think about that a little bit. And without opening it all up and counting all of the equal parts, they could compare those equal parts to the whole and try to figure that out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This must be 1/6. And so forth. This is one of the very concrete ways that boys and girls at the beginning of third grade and into fourth grade can start knowing what those fractional parts are and their sizes. It's very important that the boys and girls understand that a half, as compared to a whole, is smaller, and that a fourth, as compared to a half, is smaller. Because what happens in third grade is the boys and girls will start using the symbols for fractions, and when they see 1/4, they need to understand that 1/4 is smaller than 2/4. And when they open the fraction strips up and they see that, it's a very concrete image for them to remember. But then it's also very important when they start comparing 1/4 and 1/8 that they understand the difference in those sizes. Because boys and girls are coming from their background of thinking 4 is always less than 8, it's very important that when they are learning fractions, that they think about those denominators as the size of the pieces. So the numerator is what we are counting. The numerator tells us the unit fraction, what that is made up of. A fraction with a numerator of 1 is called our unit fraction. Our numerator is the number that is above the fraction bar, and it tells how many parts we are counting. So in this instance, we are counting 1 part. The denominator, however, tells us the total number of equal parts. It very often names the parts. So we will tell boys and girls that the denominator is the total number of equal parts, but also it is the name of the parts. So when we say 1/4, we're talking about fourths. When we say 1/8, we're talking about eighths. And then the boys and girls can start thinking about, if we have one piece of each, which fraction is going to be bigger, the fourths or the eighths? And that conversation is crucial afterward, because it's important for the boys and girls to understand that a fourth of a piece of the whole is going to be bigger than an eighth of the piece of the whole. And that's very important language and understanding for our third graders to get and to accomplish in third grade. So when we give the kids fractions, I may give them and say, well, 1/8 must be bigger because 8 is a bigger number than all the rest. The third graders need to understand that 1/3 and 1/4 are both bigger pieces than 1/8. And when I ask them to tell me why, they would have to say something like, because when I compare 1/4 and 1/8, I look at how many equal parts there are in the whole. If there are 4 equal parts, that means those parts are each going to be bigger when I'm comparing these to the whole of my green strip. When there are 8 equal parts, that means each part is going to be smaller. So when boys and girls truly see the concrete of all of our fraction strips, and then they start looking at some very abstract symbols like these fractions, they need to think back, 8 equal parts and one of them, 4 equal parts and one of them. And then they can start comparing and know that 1/8 is going to be smaller than 1/4. And we will do that continuously, even when the kids start seeing 2/6 and 2/8. We want them to think back to the unit fraction of 1/8 and the unit fraction of 1/6, because if they know that 1/6 of the whole is 6 equal parts, those parts are going to be bigger than the 8 equal parts and one of those. So they know, and they will say, I know that 2/6 is made up of 2 1/6 pieces, and 1/6 of the whole is going to be a bigger piece than 1/8 of the whole. So 2/8 has to be bigger than 2/6 because 1/6 is bigger than 1/8. All important learning, lots of things to understand, and a lot of language and vocabulary that we are learning at the beginning of third grade in fractions.